$100,000 for a single XRP? It sounds completely insane, doesn't it? The kind of fantasy you'd laugh off in a second. The type of clickbait that makes you roll your eyes and just keep scrolling. And honestly, I was right there with you. It feels totally disconnected from reality. A number so huge it stops meaning anything. But then I started digging. I started connecting the dots between public statements from the world's most powerful financial institutions, obscure white papers from global standard setters, and the quiet, deliberate moves happening behind the economic curtain. And what I found wasn't just random speculation. I found what looks like a documented plan, a blueprint for a global digital shift, a fundamental rewiring of how money moves around the planet. In this video, we're going to do something different. We're going to explore that explosive scenario. We'll walk through the exact step-by-step sequence of events that would need to happen for XRP to theoretically reach that unbelievable price. We're going to map out the great wealth transfer narrative and show you why the most passionate believers think XRP is at the very center of it all. And then, more importantly, after we explore that world-changing possibility, I'm going to reveal the more realistic price targets that top analysts are quietly planning for right now. These are the numbers institutions are actually using for their own models as we head toward 2030. Stick with me, because understanding both sides of this coin, the wild speculation and the grounded reality, is the absolute key to navigating what's coming. The digital shift is happening, and by the end of this video, you will understand its potential from every angle. Before we can even talk about a world where one digital asset could be worth tens of thousands of dollars, we have to understand the problem it's supposed to solve. And the problem is this. The system that powers our global economy is fundamentally broken. It's old, it's inefficient, and it's built on technology that predates the internet. Think about it. In 2025, you can send a message to anyone on Earth instantly for free. You can stream a high-definition movie from a server halfway across the world without a single hiccup. Information moves at the speed of light. But what about value? What about money? If you want to send a large sum of money from, say, New York to a supplier in Japan, what happens? Your money doesn't just show up there. It begins a long, complicated, and expensive journey. That journey is managed by a system called SWIFT. But don't let the name fool you. SWIFT doesn't actually send money. It sends messages about money. The actual funds have to travel through a tangled web of correspondent banks, each holding money for the other in special accounts called Nostro and Vostro accounts. It's like a relay race, but at every handoff, a little bit of time is lost and a little bit of money is skimmed off for fees. A single payment can take 3 to 5 business days to settle, and it gets more expensive along the way. This isn't just an inconvenience. It's a massive drag on the economy. Trillions of dollars are just sitting frozen in these Nostro Vostro accounts around the world, acting as pre-funded liquidity just so the system can work. That's dead capital. Money that could be invested, loaned out, or used to grow businesses is instead trapped, serving as the plumbing for a 50-year-old financial architecture. It's like sending a letter by mail in the age of email. It gets there, eventually, but it's slow, expensive, and completely out of step with the digital world we live in. This creaking, groaning system isn't just inefficient, it's fragile. We all remember 2008. We saw what happened when the intricate, opaque, and over-leveraged system of traditional finance came crashing down. The dominoes fell, one by one, because everything was so tightly and complexly connected that a failure in one corner cascaded through the entire global economy. It was a harsh reminder that the system we all depend on is not as robust as we'd like to believe, and the pain points are felt everywhere. For individuals, it's the insane fees for sending money to family overseas. For small businesses, it's the agonizing wait for international payments to clear, crushing their cash flow. For big corporations, it's the billions in trapped capital that could be put to better use. The whole system creates a feeling of being left behind, A system that works for the middlemen, but not for the people actually using it. It's a system begging to be disrupted. Financial leaders and global institutions know this. They aren't blind to the cracks in the foundation. They've seen the writing on the wall, and they understand that another crisis isn't a matter of if, but when. And just as the 2008 crisis led to a massive transfer of wealth and a new financial landscape, many believe the next one will trigger a digital shift, a planned migration to a new set of rails, a system built for the 21st century. And it's in the design of that new system where the most explosive XRP theories are born. All right, let's get to the part of the story you came for. Let's put on our speculative hats and walk down the path that could, in a perfect storm, lead to a price that seems impossible today. So, what would it really take for a single XRP to be worth $100,000? First, you have to do the math, and I want you to see the sheer scale of this number. There are roughly 54 billion XRP in circulating supply as of November 2025. If each one was worth $100,000, that would give XRP a market cap of $5 quadrillion. Let's be crystal clear. That number is beyond astronomical. The total value of all the wealth on Earth, every stock, bond, piece of real estate, all the gold, all the cash, is estimated to be around $500 trillion. So a $5 quadrillion market cap is 10 times more than all the money and assets in the entire world. This immediately tells us that for this scenario to even be a topic of discussion, XRP can't be valued like assets are today. It couldn't be just a stock or a simple currency. In this scenario, XRP isn't just an asset. It becomes the base layer, the fundamental settlement tool for a completely tokenized global economy. It's a thought experiment not in valuation, but in utility. What kind of system would even require such a number? The narrative starts with the Great Reset, or the digital shift. The story goes like this. Global financial institutions like the Bank for International Settlements, the BIS, the IMF, and the World Economic Forum all recognize that the current SWIFT system is unsustainable. They need a new system, and they've been working on it for years. This new system will be built on blockchain and have two key parts: central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, and tokenized assets. First, CBDCs. Nearly every major central bank is developing a digital version of its currency. A digital dollar, a digital euro, a digital yen. This gives them more control and efficiency, but it also creates a new problem. How do all these different CBDCs talk to each other? If the Fed creates a digital dollar and the ECB creates a digital euro, how do you swap them instantly without falling back into the slow old system? You need a bridge, a neutral asset that can sit in the middle and facilitate instant exchange between any two currencies. Proponents argue that using one country's CBDC, like a digital dollar, as the bridge would never be accepted by powers like China or Russia. It would give the US too much power. So the perfect bridge asset has to be politically neutral, fast, cheap, and scalable. This is the exact role Ripple and XRP were designed for. In this explosive scenario, XRP is chosen as the world's main bridge asset for the entire network of global CBDCs. But it doesn't stop there. The second, even bigger piece is asset tokenization. This is something BlackRock CEO Larry Fink has talked about over and over. He has said the future of finance is the tokenization of all assets. This means every stock, bond, ounce of gold, and piece of real estate will eventually become a digital token on a blockchain. Now imagine a world where a huge chunk of these assets are tokenized. If you want to trade a token of Apple stock for a token of a Tokyo skyscraper, how does that settlement happen? In the $100,000 XRP scenario, it happens using XRP as the settlement layer. The value moves across the XRP ledger. In this world, XRP is no longer just for cross-border payments. It becomes the liquidity backbone for the entire tokenized economy. It's the oil in the engine of a multi-quadrillion dollar machine. XRP's value would no longer be driven by speculation. its value would be a direct function of the total value of all assets it is securing and settling. To move trillions of dollars in tokenized assets around the globe daily, the bridge asset itself needs an immense valuation to ensure there's enough liquidity to handle huge transactions without wild price swings. This is where Project Agora comes into the conversation. Project Agora is a real initiative led by the BIS along with 7 major central banks, including the Fed and the Bank of England, to explore a unified ledger for tokenized payments. While they have not officially named XRP as the technology, Ripple's Japanese partner, SBI Holdings, has confirmed it's participating in the project. Proponents see this as a huge clue that Ripple's technology is at the heart of these high-level discussions. So the $100,000 XRP theory isn't about XRP just going to the moon. It's a theory about a total, top-down restructuring of the global financial system, with XRP selected as the foundation for all value transfer. It would be like owning a piece of the protocol that replaced SWIFT, the NYSE, and the global bond markets all at once. A fantasy? Almost certainly. But it's a powerful story that fuels the most extreme bull case for this asset. Moving from quadrillion-dollar fantasy back to something resembling our current reality, XRP's journey is paved with very real, very significant milestones. These are the catalysts that bulls are watching, the dominoes that need to fall to bridge the gap between today and a future of much wider adoption. The path to even a fraction of that explosive scenario requires legitimacy, clarity, and access. The first, and arguably most important catalyst, was the long, draining legal battle with the US SEC. For nearly 5 years, this lawsuit cast a dark shadow over XRP, creating massive uncertainty and getting it delisted from major US exchanges. The SEC's whole argument was that XRP was an unregistered security. That uncertainty was a brick wall for any serious institutional money in the United States. That all started to change with a landmark 2023 ruling, where a federal judge declared that sales of XRP on exchanges were not securities transactions. This was a monumental win for Ripple and the XRP community. The final chapter of this saga concluded in August 2025, when Ripple and the SEC agreed to a settlement of $125 million. Finally putting the issue to rest and removing the single biggest roadblock to institutional adoption in the world's largest economy. With legal clarity finally achieved, the floodgates for the next major catalyst opened. Spot XRP exchange-traded funds, or ETFs. We all saw the explosive impact of spot Bitcoin ETFs. They provided a safe, regulated, and simple way for both retail and institutions to get exposure to Bitcoin without the hassle of self-custody. It brought billions of new dollars into the market. The XRP community has been waiting for the same thing, and in late 2025, that wait ended. Following the settlement, major asset managers like Franklin Templeton and Bitwise filed a wave of applications. In fact, the first spot XRP ETFs have already begun trading, and the debut was nothing short of historic. The Canary Capital Spot XRP ETF, ticker XRPC, launched on November 13, 2025. On its first day, it pulled in nearly $250 million in inflows and saw tens of millions in trading volume, making it the largest ETF launch of the entire year out of more than 900 new funds. This wasn't just a win for XRP. It was a massive signal to the market that institutional demand, unlocked by regulatory clarity, is real and substantial. Analysts now estimate that this wave of incoming XRP ETFs could channel between $5 to $7 billion into the asset by 2026. The third key catalyst is quieter and more bureaucratic, but just as important. This involves new guidance from regulators like the FDIC. Recent guidance has explicitly opened the door for U.S. banks to engage with digital assets, including developing custody services, without needing prior approval. This might sound dull, but it's a critical piece of the puzzle. For banks to adopt technology like RippleNet or use XRP for liquidity, they need a clear rulebook that allows it. This guidance is the green light they've been waiting for. These three catalysts, legal clarity, ETF access, and banking permissions, all work together. They legitimize XRP as a mainstream financial asset, transforming it from a speculative crypto token into a viable tool for the very institutions that proponents believe will drive its ultimate adoption. Each one is a critical checkpoint on the path from today's price to the much loftier valuations imagined for 2030. We've just walked through the explosive theory and the real-world catalysts making waves right now. This is complex stuff, but breaking it down is what we do. If you're getting value from this deep dive and you want to stay ahead of the curve on how this new financial world is being built, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. It's free, and you are not going to want to miss the numbers we are about to get into. We've explored the quadrillion-dollar fantasy. We've looked at the world-shattering story of a complete financial reset with XRP at its core. It's a compelling narrative, one that really captures the imagination. But now, it's time to pivot. It's time to ask the crucial question. Once you strip away the hype and the grand theories, what are the experts quietly planning for? What are the price targets based not on a total global reset, but on tangible adoption, measurable growth, and the market we live in today? This is where we move from what if to what is. Before we get to the consensus, let's touch on the middle ground, the Super Bowl scenario that stops well short of $100,000, but is still incredibly ambitious. This is the $1,000 XRP scenario. This forecast has been notably championed by former Goldman Sachs analyst Dom Kwok, who believes massive institutional adoption could propel XRP to this level by 2030. However, we have to contextualize what a $1,000 XRP would mean. It would imply a market cap of roughly $50 trillion. To put that in perspective, the total value of all global stock markets is around that same number. This would mean XRP becoming one of the single most valuable asset classes on the planet. For this to happen, XRP would need to capture a dominant share of the $150 trillion annual cross-border payments market, requiring adoption by most of the world's banks. While not as impossible as the $100,000 scenario, most mainstream analysts see this as extremely unlikely in the next 5 years. So, what is the realistic range? What are the 2030 price predictions that serious, data-driven analysts are putting forward? Based on a wide range of forecasts from crypto analysts, financial news outlets, and algorithmic prediction platforms, the consensus for a realistic 2030 price target for XRP falls somewhere between $4.50 and $27. Let's break that down. On the more conservative end, we have predictions from platforms like CoinCodex, which see a path to around $7.38. This forecast assumes steady but not explosive growth. It factors in Ripple's continued expansion and a rising tide in the crypto market, but it doesn't assume XRP completely takes over the payment space. In the mid-range, we see targets clustering around $9 to $15. Changelly, for example, forecasts an average price of around $22 by 2030. These predictions are built on a more optimistic view of institutional adoption. They assume the launch of spot XRP ETFs will be a success, bringing in billions of new capital as predicted. They also assume Ripple's on-demand liquidity, ODL service, which uses XRP directly, will continue to gain significant market share from traditional payment corridors. This is a scenario where XRP doesn't replace SWIFT, but carves out a very profitable niche within the industry. At the most optimistic end of the realistic spectrum, we have targets pushing towards $27. Analysts and forecasters cited by outlets like Benzinga and Brave New Coin have aggregated projections suggesting XRP could reach up to $26.97 by 2030. This is a true bull case scenario within the realm of reality. It would require widespread institutional adoption following the successful rollout of multiple spot ETFs. Significant expansion of Ripple's payment solutions globally. Continued regulatory clarity in major economies. Potential new mechanisms like staking that could lock up supply and increase price pressure. For XRP to hit $27, its market cap would need to reach about $1.4 trillion. While that's a massive number, it's not science fiction. For comparison, it would be less than Bitcoin's market cap at various points in its history. It represents a future where XRP has become a major established player in financial infrastructure, but not one that has taken over the world. This range from a conservative $4.50 to a highly optimistic $27 is what the market is actually pricing in. This is the difference between gambling on a fantasy and investing in a growing technology with powerful, tangible catalysts on the horizon. So where does that leave us? We've taken a journey to the farthest reaches of speculation and planted our feet firmly back on the ground. On one hand, you have the explosive, almost mythical scenario of a $100,000 XRP. This is a story of a total global revolution, where the financial system is rebuilt with XRP as the foundational layer for all value. It's a narrative that requires a $5 quadrillion market cap, a number so vast it's hard to comprehend. It's a fascinating thought experiment. But for now, it remains a speculative fantasy. On the other hand, we have the realistic outcome. This is a story of tangible progress and hard-won victories. It's a story defined by a landmark legal settlement with the SEC that paved the way for legitimacy. It's a story defined by the historic launch of spot XRP ETFs, which smashed records and signaled real institutional demand is here. And it's a story defined by a growing analyst consensus that a price between $4.50 and $27 by 2030 is plausible, driven by real-world adoption. Understanding both scenarios is key. The hype and the grand vision are what draw attention to the problem, our broken, archaic financial system. But the real, long-term value will be determined by the fundamentals: regulatory wins, institutional products, and real-world utility. The digital shift is happening, with or without XRP at its absolute center. The world's largest institutions, from BlackRock to the Bank for International Settlements, are actively building a tokenized future. They are moving assets onto the blockchain and creating new plumbing for the global economy. The ultimate question is not if this new system will be built, but which technologies will form its foundation. The journey from a few dollars to potentially $27 or more is a marathon, not a sprint. It will be driven by the steady, methodical work of building partnerships, securing approvals, and delivering technology that is 10 times better than the old way. The most informed investors aren't betting on the fantasy. They're investing in the tangible progress happening today. The digital shift has started. The only question is, are you paying attention? Let me know your price target for XRP in 2030 in the comments below. What do you think is the most realistic outcome? And if you haven't already, subscribe for more deep dives into the future of finance. Thanks for watching.